What's in the stars and the cards ahead for you this week? Welcome, welcome. Please, as you hop on, give me a quick hello. Let me know where you're watching from. It's always so much fun to gather from all around the world and come together in community to have this spiritual connection and look at the week ahead. So, hello. Let's talk about letting go to grow. This week really is about refining our focus so that we can lead with emotional intelligence. We're really paying attention to our emotions, our feelings, and also our thoughts. Why? Well, let's just say we're kicking off the week with a full moon in Aries. It happens tonight, 11:47 p.m. Eastern. So you can translate for your time wherever you are in the world. But full moons are about culmination, shining a light on an area of our life. Specifically, this is in Aries, and Aries is where you're felt called to lead, to be bold, courageous, take action. And, if you're about where this full moon is happening in your chart, then definitely pop a little heart in the comments below. We go deep into that in Moon Club. We look at our charts and we see how the moon is affecting you because the moon affects us on a daily basis. It helps us navigate our emotions and our feelings. So if you are moon sensitive, so to speak, you are in the right place. So let's talk about the other big thing that's happening this week. Mercury is going into Scorpio today. So that is going to cause, how do I want to say? Can't clearly, I don't like cause, but let's say it's going to bring a big focus on what you're thinking, what you're saying, and it's going to be more important than ever to keep your mind in the good neighborhood, so to speak. But before we dive into all of those things, let's go ahead and I'm going to invite you to place a hand on your heart and just ask, what is the most important thing that you need to know this week to stay aligned and in the flow of energy. So you can flow with the go rather than go with the flow. Oh, two cards want to pop out. Okay, excellent. So the first card is 10 of Swords. So the 10 of Swords, this is thoughts. Swords represent the element of air, the mind, and her thoughts are keeping her trapped. Whether you want to think of these as limiting beliefs or self-sabotaging thoughts, the mind is keeping her imprisoned because it's her reflection. Really and truly, she's not tied up. She's not trapped. She's not stuck. She's not bound. But there is another option. This kind of reminds me of those moments where you're given two options. And it's like, well, do you want black or white? And not realizing that there might be a gray. There might be a third option. And we are in the Libra energy where the sun has moved into Libra season. And Libra is really about saying, okay, let's find that third option. Let's find the sweet spot where it can be a win-win solution. So watching your thoughts is so important this week because you're not as stuck as you think you are. Pay attention. So Queen of Cups came up as well. Pay attention to your intuition, your gut instincts, your feelings. If you are feeling overwhelmed with all of this water coming up, it's important to have some kind of practice to help you navigate the feelings and emotions. That's where I say, do your moon. When you know where your moon is, what zodiac sign it was in when you were born, and each of us have that, it lets you know how to navigate stress and handle overwhelm with much more grace. Because some people, if your moon's in Aries, you're going to just find a solution, go for it, find a solution. You're just going to want to do something. Go, action, think later. Act now, jump, don't look. And if you are a Virgo moon, you're going to want to really think it out. You're going to want to come up with a plan. You're going to be most effective and efficient. You're going to think about it. You're going to come up with a solution. So everybody reacts differently. And when you know how you are wired, what your natal promise is or your soul blueprint, it can make all the difference in the world. And by the way, if we haven't met, my name's Irina Miller. I'm an astrologer, what I call a spiritual life guide, an energy alchemist. And it is my joy to connect empathic, curious seekers to the sacred tools and practices that enable them to live the life that they were born to live. So if you are somebody who feels everything if you sense foods when it's full, when it's new, like you can't sleep with, you have that extra energy, or you're sleepy and groggy with a new moon. And if you want to know how to use that energy to create your best life, how to align your actions so that you can succeed in business, in personal areas, in your own self-development, you're in the right place. And please do make sure you like, subscribe, share this with your moon sensitive friends. It helps me out so much. It helps the channel grow, and it helps get the word out of these sacred practices. And I'm so grateful for you doing the sacred work, for being here, and for being a part of the community. So let's talk about overarching energy of the week. And hello, Shannon, you made it live. And Julie, you made it live. So great to have you here. Overarching energy of the week. Well, we kick off with that full moon in Aries. This is lighting up an area of your chart. And if you want to look for it, if you know how to take a look, you look to see, okay, where's 14 degrees Aries happening? It might be a spot that has to do with home. It might be a spot that has to do with career. It might be a spot that has to do with creativity or relationships, but you're being called to step up and to lead, to be courageous. It's time to, with the full moon, take a really good look at, okay, I'm going to celebrate the culmination, the finishing of a particular project, thought, idea, and I'm going to be ready to release, because the rest of the week, the moon is waning. And with that moon waning, what ends up happening is there's this nudge from the universe to let go. Let go of the old thoughts, the old actions, whatever was tied to the old projects. Maybe you're clearing clutter out of your home, but you're releasing so you've got space to think. Whether it's physical possessions, and I say this because I really need to hear this. I love to hang on to things. And again, you can look at your chart. My moon in Cancer makes me very sentimental. It's hard to let go of some physical items. I have to really be clear with my heart and kind of like, thank you for blessing my life. May you move on and bless someone else's life. Because if we're not using it, even if we're going to use it 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, because a lot of things I do, like I don't pick up for years, but I'll go back to. Let me know if I'm the only one with that. Sometimes I feel like the more creative we are, the more artistic. And I was brought up with the attitude of, you learn how to make do, right? You look at what's around you and you kind of Frankenstein things and jerry rig and put together something that'll work. And it's fun, but at the same time, you can have all sorts of extra things. So this week says, okay, listen, let's really let go so you can be bold and courageous, because our possessions, they can start to own us. They take a lot of time away from other activities because we've got to dust them, care for them, tend to them. Maybe it's a thought, maybe it's a feeling, but I'm going to encourage you, take this time this week to, again, let go. What's holding you back, especially if you think of that 8 of Swords at the beginning. What mindset, what thoughts are keeping you trapped and stuck in the old cycle? Let's go in and we're going to talk about the week day by day. I want to break it down like that. Hello, Chrissy. So glad that you made it live as well. So Monday, full moon in Aries happens very late at night. But here's the cool thing about the full moon in Aries. And I have my little astrology software over here. That's why I'm looking over here. There is a finger of God, it's called, which just is kind of like, when I first heard that term, I was like, wait, God's given us the finger? What? No, cancel, clear, delete. There's this pointing action from the universe where the universe is really pointing at Mercury, like, psst, pay attention to Mercury. What's Mercury? Well, Mercury is the planet that rules logic, communication, thought, intellect, the way that we basically talk to each other, the way that we process. And Mercury is entering a brand new zodiac sign. So it's kind of like, if you think of the zodiac signs kind of like characters in a play, you've got the actor, Mercury, and Mercury was just playing the role of Libra, so very diplomatic and balanced and thinking of things from all sides. But now Mercury is playing the character of Scorpio. So a little mysterious. They're the ones who reveal what's been hidden. The secrets start to come to the surface. So you want to watch what you're saying. You might be a little surprised at what you come to find out. You can always say, that's interesting, right? So you kind of bring a neutrality to it. But the other thing about a Scorpio mind is that it can become very fixated. And it's fascinating to me learning about the Scorpio energy, because even if you don't have any planets in Scorpio, it still affects one of your houses, which basically means where life kind of plays out. So the energy still affects you in some way. And then there's other ways that it does too, but conversation for another time. Here's what I want you to know about it now is that you might find yourself more fixated and compulsive, like the thoughts just kind of keep going very deep and you go down a rabbit hole. If you find yourself going deep, especially in an area of thinking that isn't serving your highest, set up like a little alarm bell, almost like you have like little fences in the yard or lights that go on when, things come into your space and you're like, wait a second, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. Watch for it and then immediately reframe the thought. So if you think a negative thought or you think a thought that's like bad neighborhood thought, you say, oh, hold on, cancel or delete, and reframe it. Kind of like if you feel like, why isn't it working for me? It never works. Or I can't believe I'm in this relationship again. You reframe it like, wow, I'm so excited that I'm willing to show up and be open to engaging in more relationships and connections. I'm so excited that I've got the perseverance and tenacity to try again, to get up one more time. And so you're just reframing it. It's going to be a very powerful practice this week, especially with Mercury going into Scorpio. Hello, Hannah. So great to have you. So think about Monday as a chance to really channel this focused thinking into a healthy, productive space. So if you've wanted to do deep research and deep thinking in an area, then definitely do that. Scorpio's going to be hanging out here for a little while, not too long. He moves very fast. So he's going to be here for a little over a month. But don't feel like you need to rush. Think about it as refinement. You're refining things. And if you're thinking about the way that you engage at work or with business, take a moment to revisit your goals that you set 6 months ago. So kind of at the beginning of the year, what were some of the things that you wanted to achieve in 2025? Where do you want to wrap that up? Is there anything still on the bucket list that you're like, oh, I need to really make sure I focus in on this area? Because that's the cool thing about Scorpio is that it's focused and it's intense. So utilize that thought power in this way rather than getting stuck in negative thinking. So, all right, let's go ahead and pull a card for Monday. What's most important that you need to know from Monday's energy? Let's see who pops up. King of Swords. I love this guy. So this card to me represents entrepreneurial energy or the just do it energy. There's an intensity. There's a passion. I mean, look at that smoldering look. Aries, which is ruled by Mars, is fire. And the energy of wands is also fire. So that's passion, inspiration. What are you passionate about? What inspires you? Utilize this full moon in Aries with that Mercury and Scorpio energy. And you've got that finger of God pointing, like, pay attention to Mercury. Saturn is working with it, which is saying there has to be some adjustment in the discipline, the structure that you bring to your thinking, as well as Uranus. Be willing to be a little bit of rebellious, think differently, allow your eccentricity to come out and channel that into something of creation. Just watch for burnout. And we're going to talk about that later in the week because it's important to always check in and say, is this energy in balance? What I'm giving out, do I feel like I'm getting back in return? Am I able to recharge my batteries? Because we do want to watch for burnout. As empaths, intuitives, it's very easy to burn out just because you're so online and so aware of all this data coming in that many people just aren't aware of. And that's okay. We that's why we have our different support systems. And that's why it's great to know astrology, because you can look at someone's chart and say, oh yeah, well, of course, they're not wired to feel it this way. They're going to feel it differently. And it gives us a lot of grace and compassion for all the diversity in this world. Very cool. So Tuesday, the moon is still in Aries. So we're still in that full moon glow. And Moon Club members, we have our Moon Club gathering that day. And if you don't know about Moon Club, holy cannoli, you need to check it out. Let me just pop it up on the screen, irenamiller.co/club. And you can go there, see what it's all about. But the Aries moon, it's really going to put a fire in your belly. So that King of Wands that comes in Monday, what has been building within your belly? Lean into the courage of the Aries moon to start to research it, to a little bit. That Mars energy is strong, and Mars is still hanging out in Scorpio too. Mars loves that intensity, that passion. The thing about Mars and Scorpio is that it has this drive that can keep going and going and going. So that's why we're going to want to manage our energy this week. But it's really cool because you might find that even though the moon's waning and we tend to kind of retreat and go inwards and we're not expending quite as much energy, the internal kind of introverted energy to meditate on it, chew on it, to let it digest and kind of incubate is really strong. It's very, very cool. So make sure this week, especially on Tuesday, that you give yourself a chance to take a deep breath before you do any action, before you respond, before you hit the enter button or the buy button or the respond button, just because all that Aries, Mars energy, and Mercury hanging out there can be this feeling of compulsion and urgency, like, oh, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. Watch that. Just take a breath. It's kind of, what it reminds me of is when they say, when you're eating a meal, like stop before you're totally full and wait like 15 minutes or 20 minutes for your brain to register the signals from your tummy that you're full. That's another one I got to work on. All right. So Tuesday, one last thing to share about that is that take note, the moon goes void of course about 2:23 p.m. Eastern. What that means is get all of the important work done at the beginning of the day. So creative brainstorming, having conversations, taking bold actions, because after 2:30, 2:20, let's say, you're going to want to holy cannoli. Have my phone on because I always want to be able to hear my dad if he calls, if it's an emergency, because anyway, he's a conversation for another time as well. I don't want to get too far off track. But Tuesday, when the moon goes void, of course, it's important to realize that's a great time for kind of low stake admin work, resting, meditating, journaling. Basically, the moon isn't having a conversation with any other planet, so neither should you. The moon is kind of taking a little break. She's having a snack break, coffee break. Put your feet up. Take a moment to kind of wrap things up. Don't start new things. Don't launch new things. This void course of moon is going to last all the way into Wednesday. All right. So what's most important that you need to know for Wednesday's energy? Holy cannoli. Ooh, 2 jump out. 6 of Wands. Now, this is a cool one. And let me get this off the screen. Bum, bum, bum. My mouse. Okay, there you are. So the 6 of Wands is celebrate your accomplishments. When you think about the beginning of the week, starting out with that 8 of Swords energy, which is the thoughts that keep us trapped, that keep us stuck, that inner critic, take some time to remember what you have accomplished, kind of like writing a brag sheet. My daughter's getting ready to apply for colleges, and there was something that talks about creating a brag sheet. Just list out the accomplishments, have it in one place so it's easily accessed, so you can remind yourself, wow, I've come really far. Because sometimes what happens is our goals are so far in the future and they might seem so big and overwhelming, we don't realize how much we've actually accomplished. Like I'll never forget when I went back to a big yoga conference and I ran into one of my old teachers and I said, oh, hi, how's it going? And she said, oh, it's going great. How about with you? I know that you were interested in teaching, have you pursued that at all? And I said, yes, I'm so excited. I actually got my yoga training teaching certification, my ERYT, and I opened up a brick and mortar yoga studio, and I've got students, and I'm teaching this deep dive immersion. And she looked at me and she was like, because it seemed like just yesterday that I saw her, a couple years had gone by, and it didn't feel like I still had so many other goals that I was reaching towards. It didn't feel like I had accomplished that much. But in talking to her and seeing and feeling her reaction, I was like, oh, it does kind of feel like I did this. But it took me 5 years to get my yoga certification because I had to travel all around the country and the world. This was the late 90s, early aughties. And so, there wasn't online courses and classes available like there really are now. So a lot of my trainings I did that way. And, it just took a lot longer. The same thing with my astrology certification. I've got my 500 hours in 3 years with an incredible teacher sitting at her feet learning. And then with the International Society of Astrological Research, I've passed the big 6-hour exam. I've taken the consulting class, but I just have to wait another 6 months to take one more class to get the certification. So it's like, okay, well, this is going to be another 5-year process. But we invest. That's a Mars and Scorpio energy too. You invest in what counts. So take a moment to list your accolades. Remember why? Because it's going to bring you that sense of accomplishment, and you're going to realize how much you have done and accumulated, the wealth. It's kind of like taking time to practice gratitude. Like, wow, thank you, universe, for blessing me with the opportunities to have this, client, this job, these friendships, to have these opportunities to learn. Thank you for the beautiful sunshine, the cold nights and the warm days of fall here in the Northern Hemisphere. Whatever it is, take a moment to celebrate and to realize, because it's going to make you feel really successful and rich. Because the way Venus is kind of dancing this week, good old Venus, she is dancing in such a way that she's in the Virgo energy, which can sometimes get a little, overly critical and analytical of what we love and the things that we dive into. She's dancing with Jupiter, especially on Wednesday, in such a way that it's going to be inviting you to remember the blessings in your life. Because when we align ourselves energetically like that, we naturally magnetize and attract more blessings. It's kind of like if you run into the Debbie Downers, they always seem to have something wrong going on in their life, and they kind of attract trouble. Start to shift your energies. Just start to shift what you're looking at. Find the beauty in the world around you, in the tiny, simple things. And Wednesday's Taurus moon is encouraging just that. Taurus says, enjoy the simple pleasures of life. A good meal, comfort food, comfy clothes, good music, good, I say good wine. I think it's, it's very Bacchus, that the Greek or Roman god, of enjoyment and of pleasure. Taurus moon is going to want to slow down. It has to recover after all that Aries fire. Go, 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 go. Taurus is like, hey, let's just hang out. So something to focus on Wednesday, with that Taurus moon, because Taurus also represents your resources, is watch where it's easy to overindulge and go really, really big. Focus on what you value, your money, your resources, your time, your physical items, and start to just kind of do a little assessment of that, because this is the releasing week, right? What really still brings you value? Do you really need that old yogurt maker? I'm thinking about using that again. I haven't used it for a long time, but I really like my yogurt maker, or the ice cream maker. Holy cannoli, I like gadgets. Do you like gadgets? Let me know. Am I the only one with like all of these kitchen gadgets that take up space? But I come back to them, like the bread maker. Oh my goodness. So look, what do you value? It's taking up storage space, or maybe you're paying for that storage in some way. Your energy, what are you pouring it into? That's where your treasures will be. Do that reevaluation. And let's pull a card. Wednesday, what's most important that you need to know for Wednesday's energy? This wants to hop out. Ooh, interesting. The grass isn't always greener. So this is that reminder, the beautiful Four of Cups. Sometimes we look out and I giggle because sometimes people looking in on your life, or even like my life, like, oh, Irina, you always know how to have such fun, life is a bowl of cherries kind of thing. And it's like, wait, what? Yes, I'm definitely all for making fun, and I love to have fun, but I'm actually quite serious. And it's very interesting when people will reflect back and say, oh, because I think they're having the fun. So there's something right underneath your nose that's being offered to you, an opportunity, a treasure right in your own space. But you could be very well missing it because you're looking somewhere else outside of yourself. Enjoy what you've created. That's the other thing, too, that the Taurus moon, I think, reminds us of. We're working so hard, right? Aries, bold, work, 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 go for it, go, 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 just do it. That Taurus moon says, wait a second, you've been working really hard. Let's kick back and really enjoy what you have built, to enjoy, maybe the beautiful, comfy home that you've created, or being able to go out for a great meal, or time with friends, or time to just take a lazy morning on a Saturday or a Sunday rather than just rushing out the door. So I invite you, play with that on Wednesday. Thursday, the moon is still in Taurus, and it does go void, of course, late in the evening, about 8:31 p.m. Eastern. So if you're West Coast, it's kind of like right after work. If you're across the pond, you might already be sleeping. So it's later in the day, but I also think that it's nice to remind ourselves sometimes, even of those later night void, of course, moons, because it enables us to say, okay, I'm really going to stop working at 8 o'clock or 8:30. Because if you make your own hours, you can end up working all over the timeline. When I was coding back in the day, as I've had many different lives, it seems, in this lifetime, but when I was in corporate, I did a lot of website development and coding, and worked for a Microsoft Gold partner, yada yada. But the thing is that as a coder, you always thought, oh, weekends are infinite time. So if I need some more time to finish up this project, the weekend is infinite. I'll just work over the weekend. Yeah, it's very interesting. So if you've had that logic and that mindset, time to shift that. I'm coughing to clear the energy. All right. So with Thursday's energy, take a moment to, with that Taurus moon, again, you're grounding, really connecting with the earth energy. Take stock of your wins. And I said, take stock of your wins. Sounded like wins. Interesting. Thinking of the yoga now. Anyway. Boy, I want to get distracted today, but we're going to focus. So the way that you value yourself, Taurus is also about that. How are you valuing your time, your energy, and your money? Are you losing time because you're getting sucked down maybe the social media spiral? Are you hanging out and vegging on the couch? And Taurus might say, yes, and it is delicious. Yeah, that's great. Set up the container. Just take a moment to evaluate. It's really important to be mindful this week with that Mercury and Scorpio, because we can really go deep and we'll lose track of time. We'll become fixated on something, and we can forget other things that are important. So you're just taking a quick temperature check on Thursday to make sure that you're honoring your value, your self-worth. You might want to kind of say, is it time to change my prices, to look and figure out, is my salary reflecting what I'm bringing forth? Kind of play with that. You're just taking a look. And we're going to ask what's most important to do on Thursday. That energetic exchange, that balance. Okay, Hanged Man. This is cool. This means that you're being encouraged to look at the situation from a different vantage point. If you were feeling stuck, so here's that stuck energy where now it really is outside of your control. The Eight of Swords, it's totally in our control. We're like, okay, you know what? I'm actually not all bound up. So that was the energy that came up for the week, that Eight of Swords, the girl wrapped up in the string. She wasn't actually trapped. This card says it feels like we're stuck. It feels like you're stuck. And we are, to a certain degree, waiting for something outside of ourselves to shift and change. And here in the States, we have things going on with the government. We have shutdowns. We have things that are outside of our control, tariffs. And I say outside of our control, right? There's certain things we can do to help shift that energy. And I won't get into that. But what I do want to say is take a moment to shift your perspective. Kind of like when COVID hit, a lot of people felt that trapped feeling, like we've gotten our rights, our freedom taken away from us. And then looking back and reflecting, you have others who are saying, wow, it was such a great time. I was able to bond with my family members. We had quality time. Like it's just a shifting the perspective, the gratitude journal this week, the reframing of your thoughts. Nothing is ever perfect or rosy. It's being able to train our heart and mind to really seek out the sacred in life, the awe. My great aunts were nuns, and they would always, and they passed the teachings to my mom, and she passed them to me. And they always emphasized, find the beauty, find the good in everything. So not an easy practice, but when you strive to see that beauty and that goodness, the world changes and shifts a little bit. So I just invite you from a grounded place. So we're not giving away our power. We're not putting on rose-colored glasses. We're grounded. We're discerning. We're present. We're just shifting to find some beauty within the world. It's kind of like, Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, his mom would always say, in a disaster, look for the helpers. So it's just, where are you placing your attention and your focus? Okay, Friday. Friday, the moon goes into Gemini. Gemini moon, it's going to be chatter, right? Talk, thinking, curiosity, wanting to ask questions. Great day to make your hands busy. I always think about knitting, crocheting, painting, cleaning a little bit, in the sense of you're just making your hands busy. Maybe you're typing. But again, that might be the day where you want to go down the rabbit hole a little bit, because that Gemini moon can help you from getting too deep and too lost in it. Gemini is a connector, likes to talk with other people, laughter, great day for socializing. Maybe you want to post some fun things and just make the world a brighter place through what you're sharing on social media. I'm going to ask, how can you make the most of that Gemini moon? 10 of Cups. So the 10 of Cups is enjoy yourself with a loved one. It's a fullness of love. What do you love? Spend time on that. Do something playful. I love it. Every now and then it's important to have that connection time with those that we love. All right, Saturday. Saturday, the moon's still in Gemini. Think about this as clarity through contrast. We have Venus and Saturn doing a little dance in the sky where they're trying to find a sweet spot. You could say a balance or a compromise. Saturn, the planet of restriction sometimes, or structure and discipline, with the planet of beauty and love and relationships and enjoying yourself and money. So there's this balance now that comes into play. Wednesday was like, all right, let's focus on the abundance, the blessings, going big, feeling good. And then Saturday is like, okay, well, let's just keep that in check. Let's make sure you don't spend too much money or overeat too much. We want to find the sweet spot. So with that energy on Saturday, think about creating the container or the boundaries that help you achieve your goals. So the goals that you were visiting on Monday, saying, you know what, I still have these things that I want to finish out before 2026 comes. Saturday can give you that ability to kind of noodle on it and figure out, okay, well, how might I need to realign my resources, my time, my energy, my money, my focus, in order to reach my goal and still have enjoyment and fun and play in this life, and not, all work and no play. It's definitely finding the sweet spot. So how can you make the most of the energy on Saturday? Oh, interesting. The Three of Swords. This card looks scary. Oh my gosh. This is just saying that, sometimes with a week like we have, where it's encouraging us to let go, to refine, and a week of reflecting, there might be moments where we look back and we're saddened. there might be some kind of heartache where we realize, you know what, that plan or that dream isn't going to come to be. Maybe it's a not now, a later, or maybe it's a, you know what, it's not going to work out in this lifetime or this time round. So I want to just ask, tell me more about that Three of Swords, the High Priestess. Something bigger is going on. The answer is within you, that internal wisdom. And that seems like a pat response. But what I mean by that is, if you feel grief, if you feel heartache and sadness on Saturday over something coming to an end, or letting go of something, or a feeling of like, wow, it didn't work out. Maybe it feels like a failure. The energy isn't lost. You can take everything that you learned from that relationship, that project, that goal, and channel it into something else. Think about too, like the Hanged Man that happened a couple days before that we pulled. It's a matter of looking at things differently. The other energy about the Hanged Man is there's a sacrifice sometimes where we're willing to sacrifice something now to reach our goal. That could be like weight, right? We want to lose weight, so we're sacrificing, I want to say sacrificing sleep to get up earlier to exercise, or you're sacrificing the jelly donut, not eating that so you can get healthier and stronger. But take some time with the Gemini moon on Saturday, what I'm going to say is, maybe rather than having the conversation with like somebody else, have it with your higher self or your spirit guides. I'm going to encourage you, go for a drive. And I say that because it's Gemini. Gemini rules, Mercury rules Gemini. So I'm thinking cars, travel, like a short trip. Go for a ride. Maybe it's even a bicycle ride. Maybe it's a fast walk. But just to clear your head and to start to hear the inner guidance. That's interesting. All right. I never know what's going to come up with our gatherings. Sunday. So last day of the week, moon is in Cancer. So a Cancer moon is about nurturing and restoring your energy. Cancer moon needs to feel safe. It's about home. And you can think about values at home, nurturing yourself, kind of nestling and burrowing in with your family, with your loved ones, and just taking time to maybe step away from the world, because Cancer moon is very sensitive, very intuitive, very emotional. So Sunday, it's a great day to journal or have that meditative practice, maybe at home. You just kind of get into, what's coming to mind is swinging. Isn't that interesting? So if you have like an ability to swing, I don't have any swings anymore around my house. Maybe you go to a park where you feel safe. But it's just this little movement. Maybe even just sway side to side, or you spin like the beautiful Sufis, the whirling dervishes, to find just that nurturing. And I guess you know why the swinging is coming through, like when you were in your mother's womb. It's just that movement, that rocking. So if you have a rocking chair, thank you, angels and guides. Sometimes I feel like they're like, Irina, come on. 1 word, 3 syllables. Come on, faster. But a rocking chair. Allow yourself, just even maybe to rock. Very, very soothing. So ask yourself, what would ease look like in your workflow? What would safety look like? What do you need for that? And how to make the most of this energy? Ooh, 2 cups came up, or 2 cards came up. They're both cups. I said 2 cups. So you have the 7 of cups. Sometimes we have too many options and we don't know which to choose. Sometimes there's also a feeling of overwhelm with the options and a little bit of, I'm going to use the word trickery rather than deception, because or maybe it would work for someone else, but not for you. So it's like, how do I know which one to choose? This is great if you are very creative and you want to really dive into your imagination. But with the energy of this week, what I'm going to ask you or invite you to do is write it all down. Write down all the feelings, the thoughts that are coming up. You don't have to make a decision now, but you can ask yourself, what feels the safest? Where do things feel like they flow with ease? And it's interesting because we're not always going to choose the safest option, but because it's a Cancer moon, I'm going to just encourage you to kind of say, where do I feel safe? Where do I feel at ease? What feels like home? So here's that fullness. You're looking for the fullness of love, of joy, of emotion, of being with your loved ones as you're creating. Very, very interesting. All right. So thank you so much for coming here and playing with me. It's always such a joy to share the energy of the week ahead. If you have questions, then pop them in the comments below. If you made it this far, drop me a star or a moon so that I know that you're still with me. I thank you so much for doing this work, for showing up. It makes the world really a different place, because when enough people shift the way that they engage with life, how they're looking at life, how they're moving through life, it ripples out and it makes a difference. And that's truly how we change the world to be a brighter and more beautiful place. So thank you for being here. I so appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. So remember, trust your vibes, follow your heart, and I'll catch you all here next Monday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. And if there's anything that you want to dive into a little bit more, let me know, because I'm thinking of making just a shorter video for later in the week to kind of focus in on one of the topics that comes up from our Monday gatherings. Mwah. Much love. Thanks, Chrissy. Thanks, Julie. Thank you for hanging in there. Mwah. Much love. And I'll catch you all on the flip side. Bye, guys.